The rain lashed against the windshield in heavy, slanted sheets, distorting the road ahead. Jake clenched the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning pale. His old truck's wipers groaned against the glass, struggling to keep up with the downpour. It had been another grueling day at the construction site, another day of barely making ends meet. Bills continued to pile up, and his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, needed new shoes. His mind was weighed down with worries when he spotted her. A woman stood on the roadside, drenched to the bone. No umbrella, no bag, nothing but the soaked clothes on her back and a desperate look in her eyes. Jake hesitated. Picking up a hitchhiker wasn't exactly something he planned on doing, but something about her, the way she clutched herself against the cold, the exhaustion in her posture, made him pull over. "Need a ride," he called to the open window. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. Sliding into the passenger seat, she shivered, her dark hair plastered to her face, the air filled with the scent of rain and exhaustion. "Thanks," she murmured. "No problem." Jake turned up the heat. "Where you headed?" She hesitated again before answering, her voice raw and uncertain. "Anywhere but here." Something about those words stirred something deep in him. He understood that feeling, the weight of running, of being lost. "I'm Jake," he offered. "Emily." He noticed then no purse, no identification, just a worn-out hoodie and jeans that had seen better days. He didn't ask questions. He knew what it was like to have nothing. They drove in silence for a while until Emily spoke out of nowhere. "You ever feel like you're meant for more, but you just can't seem to find it?" Jake let out a dry chuckle. "Every damn day." She turned her gaze toward him, really looking at him for the first time. "What keeps you going?" He exhaled slowly. "My daughter. She's 6, sharp as a whip, loves dinosaurs and peanut butter sandwiches." A small smile played at his lips. "She's the reason I wake up every morning, no matter how tough it gets." Emily stared out the rain-streaked window. "Must be nice," she murmured. A few miles down the road, they stopped at a small diner. Despite barely having enough for gas, Jake bought her a coffee and a sandwich. She hesitated before accepting it, but hunger won in the end. "You're a good man, Jake," she said between bites. "Nah," he shrugged. "Just know what it's like to be down on your luck." By morning, Jake dropped her off at a tiny bus station. She had no ticket, no destination, just a tired smile and a quiet, "Thank you." A week passed. Jake was watching Lily play outside when a news report flashed across his old TV. "Missing heiress Aries, Emily Sinclair found safe." His coffee nearly slipped from his hand. The granddaughter of billionaire real estate mogul Walter Sinclair had been last seen in a small-town diner before boarding a bus. Reports confirmed she had walked away from her family's fortune willingly. Emily, the same woman he'd picked up on that rainy night. No ID, no money, nothing. She had the world at her feet, yet she gave it all up. His heart pounded. He didn't know why she left it all behind, but one thing was certain. She wasn't just running from something. She was running from everything. A week later, an envelope arrived at Jake's door. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "Jake, you reminded me that kindness still exists in the world. That money isn't what makes someone rich. People like you are. A new beginning. I hope this helps in some way. Take care of Lily, and never stop believing in something more." Jake's hands trembled as he unfolded the check tucked inside the letter. His breath caught when he saw the amount. It wasn't millions, but it was enough. Enough to catch up on overdue bills. Enough to finally buy Lily those new shoes. Enough to let him breathe for the first time in years. A lump formed at his throat. Emily hadn't just turned her back on wealth. She had chosen something real. And in doing so, she had changed his life in ways he never expected. A few weeks later, time had passed since Emily's letter arrived, but the impact lingered. Life wasn't suddenly easy, but for the first time in a long while, the weight on Jake's shoulders felt a little lighter. He used the money wisely, paying off debts, patching up the leaking roof, and most importantly, buying Lily the shoes she had been eyeing. When she twirled to the living room, giggling about how fast they made her run, Jake felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. But Emily never left his thoughts. Where was she now? Had she found what she had been searching for? One evening, as he sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, he pulled out her letter again, tracing his fingers over the words. Keep believing in something more. He didn't know exactly what more meant, but for the first time, he wanted to find out. An unexpected encounter. One morning, while dropping Lily off at school, Jake noticed a woman pinning flyers to a bulletin board outside the community center across the street. Her back was turned, but something about the way she stood seemed familiar. His gut tightened. Could it be? He hesitated, then crossed the road. The moment she turned around, his breath hitched. Emily. She looked different, lighter, more at peace. But that quiet strength was still there. She blinked in surprise before a slow smile spread across her face. Jake, what are you doing here? He was still processing the shock. I could ask you the same thing. She lifted the flyer in her hand. Starting over, he glanced at it. A new outreach program designed to help struggling families find work and shelter. A cause she had thrown herself into, even after walking away from a life of privilege. Their eyes met, and in that moment, no words were needed. She had found her purpose. And maybe, just maybe, Jake had found his too. A future worth fighting for. In the weeks that followed, Jake found himself at the community center more and more. At first, it was just to fix things, leaky pipes, broken chairs. But before long, he was volunteering, meeting people with stories just like his, people searching for a fresh start. And Emily, she was always right there beside him. They never spoke about the money. It was never about that. It was about this, the work, the people, the small moments that made life worth living. One evening, as they sat on the center steps watching children play in the field, Emily nudged him lightly. Do you ever feel like you're meant for something more? She asked, echoing the question she had once asked on that rainy night. Jake exhaled, a slow smile forming. Yeah, he said, I think I do. And for the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was truly living. A new path. As the months rolled by, Jake and Emily settled into a quiet rhythm, built on purpose, late-night conversations, and an unspoken understanding that life had granted them both a second chance. Mornings at the community center became the part of the day Jake looked forward to most. He still worked construction, but in the evenings, he helped renovate the old building, turning it into a place that felt like home for those who had nowhere else to go. And Emily, she was the heart of it all. She wasn't just helping others rebuild their lives. She was rebuilding her own. One afternoon, as Jake was patching up a hole in the roof, Emily approached with 2 cups of coffee. Do you ever take a break? She teased, handing him one. Jake smirked. Not really my thing. She sat beside him, legs dangling over the edge, watching the sky burn orange as the sun dipped below the horizon. I've been thinking about expanding this program, she said after a moment, taking it on the road. There are so many small towns like this, so many people who just need a little help to get back on their feet. Jake took a slow sip of coffee, mulling over her words. You should do it, he said finally. Emily turned to face him, her expression unreadable. Come with me. His heart stilled. What? She shrugged, her smile playful yet hopeful. You and Lily, you'd be perfect for this. Jake let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. I have a life here. Emily nudged him lightly. Do you? Or have you just been too afraid to start a new one? Her words lingered between them, heavy and real. That night, as Jake tucked Lily into bed, he thought about it, really thought about it. His entire life, he had held on so tightly, afraid to take risks, afraid to want more. But maybe Emily was right. Maybe it was time to stop surviving and start chasing something bigger. A leap of faith. A week later, Jake stood outside the community center, hands tucked into his pockets. Across the lot, Emily was loading supplies into the back of an old van, preparing to leave. When she spotted him, she hesitated. Didn't think you'd come. Jake smirked. Yeah, well, maybe I was just waiting for the right reason. The van door slid open, revealing Lily, already buckled in, grinning ear to ear. Are we going to help people, Daddy? Jake glanced at Emily, then back at his daughter. Yeah, sweetheart, he said. We are. Emily's face lit up. Then let's go. As the van rumbled down the road, leaving behind everything they had known, Jake realized something. He wasn't running away. For the first time in a long time, he was running toward something. And for once, the future didn't seem so uncertain. A life that mattered. Months passed, and the road became their home. A winding path filled with struggles, victories, and the stories of the people they met along the way. Jake, Emily, and Lily weren't just offering help. They were witnessing lives change, including their own. One evening, they sat around a small campfire outside a shelter they had just helped rebuild. Emily pulled out a worn notebook, flipping through its pages. "I've been writing down the stories of the people we've met," she said. "Their hardships, their triumphs." Jake glanced at Lily, curled up beside him, tiny hands wrapped around a cup of cocoa. He thought about the road they had traveled, about how one simple act of kindness had led them here. Emily met his gaze. "If I've learned anything, it's that life isn't about what you walk away from. It's about what you walk toward." Jake nodded, her words settling deep in his chest. "Kindness doesn't just change the person receiving it," he murmured. "It changes the one giving it too." They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling between them. Then Lily looked up, her voice soft but certain. "So, we just keep helping, right?" Jake smiled, ruffling her hair. "Yeah, kiddo, we keep helping." Because in the end, it wasn't about wealth or status or where you came from. It was about showing up. It was about lifting others when they couldn't lift themselves. It was about proving that even the smallest act of kindness could change a life forever. And sometimes it changed yours too.